Good morning and welcome. I'm Chris Shelton coming to you from a beautiful and warm, toasty, sunny day in San Jose, California, the heart of Silicon Valley. Today what we're talking about is tithing. What I love about Qigong is that Qigong represents the energy that exists within everything. So Qi is the life force energy that resides within our body, but also in our environment. Gong is the skill for which to harness this life force energy in order to improve your health. So Qi, what is Qi? Well, the original Qi would be considered God, the Tao, the universe, whatever you want to call it, whatever name you want to give it, to try to bring some kind of connection to this greatness, the undescribable, indescribable, know-nothingness. So Qi, in its subtlest forms, would be considered the Tao or God, like I said. And then as it comes into the humanly realm, there's energy manifestations in different forms. So, for example, everything in this room for which we're recording today is an expression of Qi. Even this Buddha head, these two little lovebirds here in the corner are an example. Even though they seem like they're just objects, they also actually have a certain level of consciousness, because if they didn't have a level of consciousness, actually all their molecules would disperse into nothingness. So when we're talking about Qi, and all these series of talks that we're doing every week on the Facebook and YouTube Live, Instagram, is we're trying to give you tools in order to help for you to have the best life possible. And we started off with talking about relationship health and the importance of having healthy relationships, and what does that look like, and having this reciprocal interdependent relationship as opposed to a codependent relationships. And people that are like energy leeches that just take from you and don't give back. Okay, those are all types of energy exchanges. So there's always an energy exchange that happens at some level. We talked about food. We talked about the meat we eat. We talked about the different properties of certain fruits and vegetables and how they benefit the internal organs, and how certain fruits are more active or apparent during certain times of the year, because as a result of the time of the year, certain organs are more prone to disease. So right now we're getting into the summer months, and the heart is most prone to disease. And so hence you'll see things like cherries and watermelons appearing in your farmer's market, because why? The energetic properties of those helps to benefit and cool down the heart, because the heart doesn't like summer heat. So when we're talking about tithing, what is tithing? Well, tithing is a form of energy exchange. And one of the big things is in energy exchange is being able to recognize how to give, because educated people understand the basic philosophy that it's better to give than it is to receive. And when you have this gift of being able to give, guess what happens? You start the receiving process. Now, it may not always be in the same amount that you have given, and it may trickle in over time. But when you learn how to give, when you learn how to share your time, when you learn how to respect the space around you, when you learn how to tithe, to give back to your community, to your church, then what you're doing is that you are actually showing the universe that you have this openness to be able to receive back. Now, when you do give something, it's not for the purpose of what can I get back, and is it going to be of equal or greater amounts? No, it's the idea that it's part of the collective whole. And I'll give you another example of giving that people don't really take, or people may take for granted. Let's say if you're staying at a hotel. This last weekend, we were fortunate enough, I was able to perform at the Fit Expo in Anaheim with my friends Eric the Trainer and Billy Blanks, and the White House Chef Rush, and also the Celebrity Sweat team, the rest of the Celebrity Sweat team. And we're staying at this hotel, probably about 15 minutes away from the convention center, and it had a kitchen in there. It's a cute little place or whatever. So we were able to cook breakfast, as opposed to spending excessive amount of money on breakfast, and also to be able to control what we're eating. Now, one of the things is that I made sure to clean up after myself every single day. So even though the housekeeping would come in, I still would I still wash the dishes. I didn't leave the dishes for the housekeeper to come in to clean for me. We made sure before we left to go to the convention center that the lights were all turned off and the place was pretty tidy. And some people will say, well, part of your fee for staying at that hotel is to cover the expenses for the housekeeping. And I disagree. At some level, yes, but if all of us took the attitude of it's better to give than to receive, and in this case, it's better to help out those around you. Even if it is housekeeping's job to come in and tidy up the room after us, it's still our responsibility to be able to share with them our care and our love and support, that it's a community. And even though we may be paying the hotel a certain fee, who knows, if everybody did this, maybe the fee of the hotel would go down. So really what this is about is it's about your self-worth and your self-respect. And it's really about giving back to the whole. Okay, so even something as simple as walking out of the hotel and turning off the lights. And someone would say, well, it's their job to turn off the lights for you, and I disagree. I think that it's really our responsibility. So when we talk about tithing, giving back, it's also things that we take for granted. Let's say if you go to a restaurant and those little toothpicks that you see by the cash register as you're leaving, they have the little cellophane on it, and you may see a little stash of cellophane that's sitting there by the cash register where other patrons were leaving the office and took off the cellophane and then put the cellophane in that little pile there. It's better to take that little piece of cellophane and actually stick it in your pocket and then go home and dispose of it, as opposed to being part of the people that have already left their cellophane there. And someone may say, well, why do that? What is such the big deal? They're just going to throw it all away in one group anyways. And the reality is that it's really once again about your self-esteem and and having this sense of intelligence to recognize that the little contributions that we can make, whether it's picking up something on the beach, picking up something on the side of the road, taking your trash with you, picking up after yourself if you're staying at a hotel, having the wherewithal to be able to assist other people. These are all little contributions. And one of the ways that we could actually tell how well somebody contributes their money and or their energy is by looking actually at the nostrils of the nose. As you can see, my nostrils are really big, so I give money and energy really easily. If you talk to my wife, she probably will tell you that I give away money way too easily. In fact, she jokes around that because when I'm at a restaurant, if I have good service, I really like to tip really well. And she'll joke around and say that, well, the good thing is that even though you tipped much more than what you're supposed to, good tippers make good lovers. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's just what she says. So I'm going to just own it. So having this self-respect, the self-worth is really important. And to be able to give allows the opportunity for the abundancy to come in. And when we're talking about tithing and going back to what is tithing? Well, tithing is giving back a certain amount. And now, if you don't go to church, if you don't believe in God, that's okay. You could find an organization to tithe. And what should you tithe? You should tithe 10% of what you're bringing in. And make it a conscious effort as well, too, meaning that don't just put it on bill pay and say, well, I'm going to tithe 10% of my paycheck to the church or to saving the whales or the sea lions. And then that way I don't have to do anything about it. Then, the bank will automatically withdraw that and I'm giving my contribution. For me, I think it's really better if you make a conscious effort that when you are tithing, that you don't put on bill pay, that you actually write out the check. So that way the intention is there to give to whatever the organization is and to be able to help the whole. So it's really important. And let's say you are financially struggling and you say, Chris, 10% is a lot of money. Well, maybe we have to start you off small. Maybe we start off with 2%. But the whole idea here is that you give back, and financially what we give out will actually come back to us. And I have a few clients out there that are talking about their financial struggles and stuff. But when we talk, it's also how tightly wound are they? How much do they hold on to this control or not giving back and not paying attention to even the most minute things like what I talked about? It was like something as simple as just turning off the lights when you walk out of the bathroom in a restaurant, or taking that piece of cellophane with you, sticking it in your pocket, waiting to dispose of it. Those little acts of consciousness. Some people may say, well, that's self-serving, Chris. Well, I say, well, it's self-serving intelligence. And the reason why it's self-serving intelligence is because the whole idea is to recognize that it's actually giving back to the whole, which then further brings back to myself. So when we are tithing, if you are somebody who's financially strapped, you might say, well, 10% each week from each paycheck or whatever, or maybe once a month might be a little bit much. Maybe you do have to start off maybe a 2%, 3%, but I can promise you that if you start to give, the more that you give and consciously give, not just give for the purpose of saying, well, I'm giving and I'm expecting this in return, or I'm expecting something greater in return, but giving really with the understanding and the purpose of that it's all connected. And everything is a form of energy exchange. Everything is. And when it comes to relationships, like I was talking about a few months ago about having interdependent relationships, there is an energy exchange. And even in business, there has to be an exchange. And what's interesting is that some people have said to me in the past, they say, Chris, you spread Qigong about, self-worth, healing, and, spiritual development. And, why do you charge for your services? And the response is, well, number one, especially living here in Silicon Valley, our expenses are really high because we also have a lot of projects going on. But really, it's all about an energy exchange. Majority of the people out there will not appreciate if you give something away for free, meaning that they won't show up for class every week. The ones that have a little bit of an investment in something actually has ownership. And when you have that kind of ownership, then you'll want to make sure to show up for those 6 classes or those 12 classes. Unfortunately, when people want to try to negotiate or want to try to get a freebie, a lot of times, number one, what we found throughout the years is they're really not that loyal of a customer. And number two, they normally don't stick around. And so there always has to be energy exchange. And sometimes we do trades and barters with other, let's say, practitioners or other types of businesses. And, for me, it's not about the dollar amount. Let's say my business attorney, for example, charges 3 times as much as what I charge for a single session, the trade is still energy. So whether I'm working on him, that's an energy exchange. Whether he's doing something for me, writing up a contract for me, it's still an energy exchange that happens. So it's not really about dollar for dollar. It's about being able to be reciprocal in that relationship and then share that energy. So going back to understanding these tithing and this money, this energy exchange, looking at the nose. The nose actually in Chinese medicine represents the lungs, and the lungs represent the metal element. The shape of the lungs, that benefit the lungs, is the dome shape. And it's interesting because some of the banks in China used to have a dome-shaped roof. Why? Because feng shui-wise actually helps to collect more of the abundancy or keep the money in the house, so to speak. So the nose actually tells us a lot. It tells us about the stamina of a person, tells us how well somebody will invest. It will tell us how well they spend or if they're very weak financially. The end of the nose, though, not to be too confusing, actually relates back to the heart. So that's not the area that we're talking about. We're talking about the nose itself. So when we're looking at the nose, the bigger the nostrils are of somebody, and especially if you can see the nostrils, then what that means is the person's very giving with their energy and very giving with their money. And look at people around you. Go test out my theory or test out this philosophy. People with small, tiny little nostrils. I had a friend of mine that when I first met her, she had really big nostrils, and her and her husband had started a business together. And as she got more involved with the business and she started to have staff, guess what? She got tighter and tighter and tighter with her resources. And people started leaving the business because she got so tight. But guess what else? Her nostrils actually became like these little tiny little holes. And not to say she couldn't breathe, but those nostrils actually will represent just how well somebody is able to give. And if you have somebody that has a downturned nose, then that means that they're very shrewd, which means also that they're probably very shrewd with their money. So tithing is really important, and it goes back to our self-dignity, our self-respect. So people have even said to me, Chris, and actually Jim Rohn, who's one of my favorite philosophers. I never met the man. I've listened to many of his books on tape, and I really love his philosophies on building a strong character and character building. And when like what Jim Rohn says, it's better to give than to receive. And it goes back to being able to open ourselves up to receive more. And the more that we open ourselves up, then the more that comes back to us. So what are some of the things that we could do in order to help to generate more of this sense of giving? Well, number one is we're learning how to let go of control. And the people that learn how to let go of control, the ones that try to micromanage their life every single step of the way, sometimes may not have the ability to give as much. And so they may already have an abundancy, and they want to hold on to it. But but for people that learn how to let go of control, it allows for even more abundancy to come into them. And who knows? And even if somebody has the financial wealth and resources, abundancy could come in many different forms. Abundancy could be in your health. I mean, when you die, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have, none of that stuff is coming with you, and none of the material things are coming with you. The material things that we have are just an expression of this material world that we live in. Okay, so and some people have said, and this is from Jim Rohn, about paying taxes. Well, why do we have to pay taxes for? The government is already spends too much and already is too fat as it is, anyways. But like what Jim Rohn says, and I really love this, is that everybody has to pay a tax, and the reason why is because, for example, the police department doesn't sleep at night, the fire department doesn't sleep at night. The army, the military, does not sleep at night protecting this country. And like what Jim Rohn says, it's pretty funny, is that you can't use used missiles. I mean, you can't do it. So everybody has to give. And sometimes, yes, it's not the proportions for which people give may not be fair, but understanding that your contribution actually goes back to the whole, actually frees you up and opens you up more spiritually. And guess what? The nose connects to the lungs. This opens up your chi, what they call as the sea of chi in the chest, and allows for you to have this vitality and this energy flowing through you. So not being resentful that you have to spend or have to pay a tax, or taking my advice and doing the tithing, like, well, Chris says that we should tithe 10% of our income each month or each week or whatever. Really opening yourself up, open up the lungs, can actually help to receive more. And again, it doesn't always have to be financial abundancy. It could be having helpful, supportive people. Parisa and I are very blessed that we have some really, really great people that surround us, that we're surrounded by, that are especially in the health and fitness industry, and their intentions are like ours, which is to only go out there and to serve and to give back. There's a lot of times that I go and I'll give talks for free or demonstrations for free without any expectation of money coming to me. And the reason why is because I want to share this knowledge. I mean, even us taking the time every single Wednesday to do these YouTube lives, the idea here is not for, oh, well, how much can I get financially in return? It's more about how much can I give to you? And when I'm giving these public talks, and I'm giving these public speeches, it's all about the gift of being able to give. And to me, that's much more satisfying. And then guess what happens? When that happens, abundancy flows through us from all different directions. And you can't even imagine the directions that it comes through, but it does flow. So I love to give. And again, there has to be a type of energy exchange that has to happen between all of us. And so one of the things that I like to do in order to benefit the lungs is I like to do the lung movement. And the lung movement is very simple. We're going to start off in our Wu Chi posture with our feet out, about shoulders width apart. Knees are slightly bent. Toes are pointing straight ahead. I'm going to tuck the sacrum and press back the Ming Men. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to place the tip of the tongue on the roof of the mouth behind the teeth, as if saying the letter N. And the breath is long, steady, even, and deep into the lower abdomen. Now, obviously, I'm going to be talking you through this, so I can't place the tip of my tongue on the roof of my mouth and at the same time and teach you. So anyway, so from here, we're going to begin by pulling down the heavens 3 times. You can't take me too seriously with my Love Unicorn t-shirt on. Inhale, pulling down the heavens, connecting with the divine. Allowing for this abundancy to come in and recognizing the importance of self-worth, and that part of that self-worth is to be able to give without expectations of receiving. So I'm going to inhale. I'm going to imagine a white cloud filling up into the lungs as I exhale. Now, normally when I do this move, if you've seen my YouTube channel, the 30 Days of Qigong, and we do the lung move, we talk about the lungs. Negative emotion is grief, sadness, sorrow, and loss, and the positive virtue is courage. But in this case here, what I'm doing is that I want to bring in this love, gratitude, and abundancy into my lungs. And as I exhale, I want to let go of control. And I want to let go of stinginess. And I want to let go of what can others do for me. It's more important about what I can do for others. Inhaling, imagine this white cloud filling up into the lungs. Feel it. And as I inhale, I'm developing more of this intelligent self-interest. And what is intelligent self-interest? Jim Rohn describes it as what I've been talking about for this last 25 minutes here, or 20 minutes, is recognizing your contribution to the whole. Picking up that piece of paper that's on the ground. Taking your trash with you and disposing of it. Not having the expectation that somebody else is being paid. You're paying that person to do X, Y, and Z for you, therefore they're responsible. So intelligent self-interest means that I understand my connection to the whole and my contribution actually helps bring me peace, actually helps bring me abundancy. And to be able to tithe, to give 10% to a cause, a church, something, consciously give, allows for those resources to be, or that energy to be used by the right people, the right organization to benefit those that they serve. Okay, so I'm going to inhale, white cloud, and then I'm going to pull this white cloud into my chest. I'm going to hold on to my lungs here, and just imagine this white cloud circulating around, and you feel the breath. Feel the breath as I inhale. I'm feeling that breath come in through the sinus passageway, down through the bronchial tubes, into the lungs, feeling the lungs expanding with this white light, allowing for this abundancy to come in. So if you know you're somebody that's kind of tight with their energy or their money, I mean, it's good to shop around and get good value and to be conservative and not waste your resources, right? We're not talking about wasting resources. We're talking about giving back. And as I allow for this white cloud to fill up into the lungs, allow for this openness, for the divine to come in, to allow for me to serve others, to give back. And as I do this, then the positive virtue of courage comes in, okay? One last thing that we could do here is we could actually make the healing sound for the lungs too. So if you know that, if you're afraid, like Chris, I'm afraid to tithe 10%, I'm kind of strapped financially. Like I said, start off small and gradually build. But if you do have that underlying, I don't know if I could do that, or I don't know if I could afford that, then what we're going to do is we clear that thought process out of the lungs by making the healing sound of sss. So we're going to inhale. Just imagine this white cloud filling up into the lungs. Exhale, making the sound sss. Inhale. Allow for the white cloud to come in, inhaling. Allowing for the sinus cavity to open, allow for us to be willing to give than to receive. Inhale. And then from there, slowly open up the eyes, and then bringing it back, inhaling, and exhale. Feel the white light come in, connecting with your higher self. Inhale, and exhale. Inhale, and exhale. Just allow for that white light to come in, feeling grounded, feeling connected to the whole, to everybody, everything around you. Slowly open up the eyes. Okay, kind of brought a tear to my eye there, all this gratitude and love I'm feeling right now. But anyways, so just to wrap it up here, I'm Chris Shelton, coming to you live from San Jose, California. We're talking about tithing and the importance of tithing. And tithing is not just about giving to a church or to a special organization. Believe it or not, tithing also is giving back to the whole, and not expecting other people to do for you just because you're paying them. And I use the example, and this is a great example of staying at a hotel or motel and expecting the cleaners to pick up a mess. So you leave it a mess thinking, well, I pay them to do this anyways. No, having this intelligent self-interest in order to understand that the little contribution that you could give actually gives back to the whole. And really, in order to be able to give, opens up the ability for us to receive. And so from that, I say farewell for this week. I am Chris Shelton, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve you. Until next time, Sei La Chi.